Today I'm going to walk you through on how to inspect and clean the burners on a RBI package boiler. This is an RBI boiler. Here's the model and serial number information. There is an air filter right over here to the side that needs to be cleaned every time you service the boiler. Simply pop the air filter out, wash it out with water, let it dry, and then put it back in. Before we service the boiler, we want to make sure that the power is turned off, as you can see here. And then we are going to take the two plates on the front of the boiler off here. Alright, here you can see we have the top panel pulled off. Some of the main components. Here's the control system. In order to work on it, you just take these two screws out at the bottom. This piece slides right out. Behind that, we have our igniters. We have our pilot valve, our induced draft motor, our main gas valve, air proving switch, and gas shutoff. Alright, now you can see we have the bottom panel off. We've got the gas manifold right here, along with all of the burners themselves. Here's the spark igniter down on the bottom. And there is the electrode. The electrode is also the flame sensor. So not only does it generate the spark on startup, it also sends a signal back to the ignition module telling the module that the flame is actually present. We're going to remove all of these components. Take the screws out on the side of the manifold, loosen the gas line up, take the manifold off, take all of the pilot tubing loose, make sure you know where it all goes back together, and then take the wiring loose from the igniter assembly. Alright, now that we have the manifold out, you want to just visually inspect the orifices and just make sure there's nothing clogging the orifices. These are pretty large. They typically are not going to get stopped up, but just as a good precaution, just check the orifices. And then we're going to proceed to pulling the burners out. You're going to take the 3 screws out of each burner, and each burner has a gasket. When you take the burner loose, you want to try to not damage the gasket, so just gently wiggle the burner out. Maybe use a small screwdriver to pry that gasket loose, because you're going to reuse that gasket in most cases. And then gently try to get the burner out. If the burner is damaged or has small, slight damage, it may be hard to get out, so you may have to give it a little tug. But you want to make note of which burners are easy to take out, which ones are hard to take out. The ones that are hard to take out are probably getting close to being needing replacement. Alright, here you can see that we removed the air filter. We're going to take it outside and wash it out with water. And I also have the manifold out, and I have removed all of the burners. I'm going to take them all outside as well, and I'm going to clean the burner sections with water. These are all pretty good. As you can see, there's not a lot of cracks, no bulges in the burner. If there were, the burner would need to be replaced, and if there was a lot of heavy buildup, and if all these things were plugged up, then we might even need to use soap and water, but today I'm just going to use water to spray them out. Okay, now I've got all my burners washed out with water. Let them dry out. Got all the water out of them. Put them all back in, made sure all the gaskets are back on there. And now I'm going to hook everything back up. Got to make sure that you hook up your line going back up to your air proving switch, Make sure you hook up your igniter wire, your flame sensor, and then all of your pilot tubing has to go back in correctly. And I also have the filter washed and put back in on the side over here. Let it dry out as well. Alright, I also want to, before I put the igniter back in, I just want to say something about these igniters. These things tend to wear out pretty quickly. Depending on what temperature you have the boiler set at, the higher the temperature the boiler is set at, the faster these things will wear out. It's always good to have one or two in stock on site because RBI is a Canadian company. Most of their parts come from Canada. At this time, Mechanical Resource Group, I believe it's Buddy with Mechanical Resource Group, can get the igniters, but they take about a week to get, and when the customer needs heat, you don't want to have to wait a week on Canadian Boilermakers to send you a little igniter. So go ahead and order some of these in the summertime. Tell the customer it's a wise investment. That way you'll have them on hand, and you can go ahead and change them each maintenance if you want to. Alright, as you can see, I got all the pilot tubing hooked back up. I've got the burner with the special little fitting all the way over here on the end connected to the air proving switch up here. I've got my gas union tightened up with the gas turned back on. Got all my wiring reconnected, and it's ready to put the panels back on and start. If you try to start the boiler without this bottom panel on, it will not work because it has to be in place for the air proving switch closed. You can start the boiler with the top panel off. You're just basically bypassing the little filter on the side over there. So I'm going to put it all back together and then turn it on and test it out. Alright, so I got all the panels back on the boiler. You want to be careful when you're putting all these screws back in, because sometimes they can get cross-threaded very easily, and the little nuts on the back side of the casing are hard to replace. So just be real gentle when you put everything back together to make sure everything is snug so that you don't get any air leakage around the front panels. And then I'm going to turn the power on. See the power LED and the operator LEDs come on. I'm going to try for the main burner. It'll turn here in just a second. It'll try to light once the fan proving switch makes. The igniter will try to light. And if the, there it goes. If the main burner lights and stays lit, and that blue light will stay on. If it starts and gets blown out, the flame failure light will light up here, and the main burner will shut down. The unit will shut down. You have to reset it and try it again. Sometimes you have to try it 2 or 3 times after putting it back together to get it all back on it, back in normal operation. But it helps to have brand new tires as well. It takes a lot of the fuss out of servicing these boilers, and that is how you service the RBI LCD Dominator series. Now this particular boiler also has a little inspection door here that you can look in and actually see the flame inside the burn chamber. One way to make sure that you got a good blue flame. You got a yellow flame, you've got too much gas and not enough air.